Is there a way to enable more than 4 GB RAM in 32-bit Windows OS? I upgraded my PC to 4 GB RAM and I get only 3 GB. Windows 7 32-bit considered that I 4 GB RAM but didn't use more than 3 GB. Someone told me that MS Windows 32-bit doesn't support RAM larger than 3 GB. So please, is there any way to make my OS Windows 7 32-bit support more than 3 GB RAM? No, I can't move to 64-bit because I've many program doesn't work with the 64-bit OS. Edit. I tried what Mr. Wansungi advised me, but whenever I check this option, enable support for 4 GB of RAM, I get the following error. Cannot access to the registry key_classes_root /clsid /e88X011D1A9F0000060F31. There's no CLSID in my registry, I don't know why.
You can use Pi, but it's not nearly as good as just going 64-bit. Check this MSDN page. Enabling Pi. Windows automatically enables Pi if DEP is enabled on a computer that supports hardware-enabled DEP, or if the computer is configured for hot-add memory devices and memory ranges beyond 4 GB. If the computer does not support hardware-enabled DEP or is not configured for hot-add memory devices and memory ranges beyond 4 GB, Pi must be explicitly enabled. To explicitly enable Pi, use the following /set command to set the Pi boot entry option. If DEP is enabled, Pi cannot be disabled. Use the following /set commands to disable both DEP and Pi. Windows Server 2003 and Windows XP. To enable Pi, use the /pi switch in the boot.ini file. To disable Pi, use the /no-pay switch. To disable DEP, use the /execute switch.
Read this, dude, where's my 4 GB of RAM? For general info, there is also this overview on memory limits per Windows edition. Memory limits for Windows releases.
Recently, a group of programmers have released a kernel patch for Windows 7 to allow the usage of more than 4 GB of RAM under Windows 7. Click here to download the patch, or view more information about it. The patch basically modifies the Windows 7 kernel to be more like the Windows Server 2003 Data Center Edition, which is compatible with up to 8 GB of RAM under 32-bit mode. The patch allows you to extend the pay well into 8 GB of RAM under Windows 7 32-bit. For more information about why Microsoft implemented this technical limitation, see this article. Note that individual processors will still be limited to 4 GB even if the system can access more. Although if you had 8 GB of RAM, then at least you'd still have another 4 GB for other processors. Smile.
The answer to this question is really depends on who you ask. Some say to use Pi, which will allow you to address higher than 4 GB, but Microsoft will not let you on many of 32-bit versions of Windows. This URL versus .85 asks. The following table specifies the limits on physical memory for Windows 7. Physical 4 GB limit, period. It's a licensing issue. There might even be a hack floating around to let you use more than 4 GB, but I don't remember. Please do note, Vista and Windows 7 on 32-bit will report the total physical RAM you have in system, but it will only use 4 GB of it. So, shoving 16 GB in a computer running 32-bit Windows will only use 4 GB according to Microsoft, even though System Control Panel will show 16 GB. Windows 7, Vista, and XP 32-bit will only use 4 GB of RAM, it's a fact. However, certain versions of Windows Server will use more than 4 GB with Pi enabled. For those going your wrong, Pi will allow you to use more than 4 GB, yes I agree. However, Microsoft says that you can only use 4 GB on most of the 32-bit desktop OS, so if you feel that page is in error, send them an email or call them to complain.